Will Anthony Madden lives. This is Claude Johnson from the Black Fives, and as I promised yesterday in my post from the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, I'm going to give you a background, a behind the scenes of how the amazing promotional poster featuring Will Madden and his New York City Incorporators basketball team ended up in the Met's new upcoming exhibition that's opening this week called Superfine, Tailoring Black Style. Now this piece, which is called When Champions Meet, is a promotional poster that promotes a game between the Incorporators, the team that Will Madden owned and managed and operated and promoted, and the Hiawatha Cardinals, which was a team from Washington, D.C. The way this came about is so interesting that you really couldn't make it up. Back in 2024, December, I got an email from the Metropolitan Museum of Art from a person named William DiGregorio. William DiGregorio is the associate curator of the Costume Institute, okay? So this is what it says, and it copies their whole team at the Met Museum. Hello, my name is William DiGregorio, and I'm an associate curator at the Costume Institute, Metropolitan Museum of Art, New York. We're currently working on our next major exhibition set to open in May 2025, entitled Superfine, Tailoring Black Style. It's guest curated by Monica Miller, whose 2009 book Slaves to Fashion, Black Dandyism and the Styling of Black Diasporic Identity inspired it. And it goes on to talk about how the exhibition will explore the concept of dandyism as it relates to black style and identity formation from the 18th century to the present using a variety of media, including paintings, prints, literature, film, and of course garments, both historic and contemporary. So they got me. I'm thinking, wow, what is this? I actually got this email. Why are they sending it to me? One section of the exhibition examines the role athleticism and sport have played in allowing black men a space for creative sartorial expression, from jockeys and boxers in the 19th century to basketball players in the 20th century. We would like to highlight the New York Rens as the first black-owned, all-black professional basketball team. And we're wondering if you have any materials related to them that we can that we might be able to include in the exhibition. Okay. We'd like to display a photograph of the team at least, but if you have any visual ephemera or even objects, memorabilia, garments related to the team, we would be very interested to know. I hope that this is something that will interest you, and I'm at your disposal. William DiGregorio, PhD, okay, from the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So I'm thinking, wow, but my first thought was, yes, and I'll share with you what I wrote next, right? Yes, but no, okay? I said, in a couple of days later, this was December 16th, so December 19th, I write back, hello, William and team. Happy holidays. Thanks for your patience, because I took a couple of days to get back to him. Your upcoming exhibition sounds amazing. I'd like to make a suggestion, though, if you don't mind. It's that if you want to consider dandyism among early African-American athletes, consider looking at the New York Incorporators and their owner, Will Anthony Madden, okay? Because I know a thing or two about him. He was known as the king of the basketball world and Beau Brummel of New York City. Here's a snippet. It's from my book, The Black Fives, The Epic Story of Basketball's Forgotten Era. Okay, it's published by Abrams Press in 2022. It's also an award-winning book. So in my book, this is now me reading my own writing, okay? Meanwhile, back in Chicago, the man known as Little Napoleon was being elevated to the status of a hero. In quotes, Madden's reputation is sky high in the East, a clean sportsman and a man who has led team after team to the championship laurels, the Chicago Defender said. And the reason why he had pulled something off is that he had brought a team to New York City from Chicago, which was the longest road trip in black basketball up until then. But Will Madden was an innovator. He was a showman, he was an entertainer, he was an orator. You know, everything to him was a show. That's part of why he also dressed the part, because he was exerting his agency through the way he wore his attire. What he had pulled off, though, was more than heroic. Will Anthony Madden had become, quote, king of the basketball world and Beau Brummel of New York City. Like the real George Beau Brummel, that well-loved, influential, dapper chap of the early 1800s who used personal fashion forwardness to charm his way into the inner social circle of England's future King George IV. Will had willed himself into becoming a central figure, the central figure in African-American basketball. The reason why that's so relevant and important is that Will Madden was born in abject poverty in Greenwich Village under the elevated train, barely any sunlight, as a kid in 1883, which was the year that the Brooklyn Bridge opened. And he willed himself literally to become the king of black basketball. And then by the 1970s, he was again unknown and was buried in an unmarked grave. And so my book talks about that, brings his story to the forefront, uses it as a through thread to the story, because he was born in 1883, died in the early 1970s, and so everything in between is fair game as far as talking about American history, social history, sports history, black basketball history, etc. So I use him as a vehicle for that, but I also elevate him to his proper stature and recognition for the things that he accomplished and achieved and innovated and pioneered in the world of black basketball. So we did, by the way, our organization, Black Fives, the nonprofit side, provide Mr. Madden with a proper gravestone so that he's no longer buried in an unmarked grave, and that was a couple of years back. Mr. DiGregorio, William, writes back to me a few days after that saying, "Dear Mr. Johnson, my sincere thanks for this very kind and generous message. It seems Mr. Madden would indeed be an amazing addition to the exhibition." So I'm like, yes, 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 yes. And I will happily bring this up to my colleagues as we try to finalize the curation in the next few weeks, okay? And again, this is really sort of like hitting me in a certain way because, you know, he was a remarkable figure, and I think that he deserves this type of attention. But because of who he was, the fact that he's now going to be recognized and come all the way full circle back to the Metropolitan Museum of Art, where he was an artiste and he was a showman and an entertainer and a dandy, a black dandy, the first black sports dandy in Manhattan, way before Clyde Frazier, and I'll get to that in a second, okay? But the point is, that's Will Anthony Madden. So he deserves that spot in the Met, okay? Let's just say that. Then Mr. DiGregorio continues and says, "May we return to you in the new year with a bit more concrete information. At the moment, we are working with designers, and once again, allow me to thank you for your enthusiasm, and I hope you're able to collaborate with us on Superfine." So, of course, you know, I'm saying yes, right? And I send them some images that they can look at of some of our artifacts, one of which was this poster. So then, after the new year, thank you very much for your patience and Happy New Year to you. We have been going through the exhibition curation carefully and would really love to represent the collection of the Black Fives Foundation in some way, especially with regard to Madden. We are wondering if you'd be willing to loan the promotional poster below, which so strikingly captures both the uniforms of the players and Madden's more dandiacal dress. So I had never heard of the word dandiacal, bro. Like what? Dandiacal, that sounds like a maniacal dandy, right? So I just thought that was so cool, and you know, I don't have enough to say. I can't say enough about the Met and their team and their people. So the poster, you know, it says "When Champions Meet," so that's what they named it, and it's the first big game of the season, 1915-1916. basketball, back when it was 2 words, Cardinal Machine, which was the Hiawatha Cardinals, versus the Incorporators, champions of the world, because Will Madden had declared, but also proven, that they were at least colored basketball world's champions, but in their eyes, they were world's champions. The game was going to be played Christmas Eve on Friday, December 24th. So again, that's just remarkable, right? A Christmas Eve game this is way before Christmas games on the NBA or whatever, right? Like this man was really thinking it through, and he was doing his thing. Mr. Di Gregorio continues, "It would be an incredible addition to the exhibition, and we would be honored to present it. May I also ask the dimensions? If you would be open to this, I will send an official loan request letter from the office of our director to you for consideration." It was really amazing because, now since I'm a lender to the exhibition, the lenders got really great treatment with VIP seating. And so I was sitting a couple of rows behind, I think I was like 1 row behind Anna Wintour and the director and some other people. And so I'm pretty sure that I'm in the background when they were, the paparazzi and the film crew and everything was, of course, trying to capture her, and there were some other people there that were much more noteworthy than Black Fives, but I was in the background wearing my Black Fives hoodie, so I just felt like, we're going to get some visibility for this brand one way or another. That's followed up with a letter from the director, okay? Then Mr. Holine Max says, and by the way, he's the Marina Kellen French director and CEO of the Met, okay? So I'm getting a letter from him. I mean, to get a letter, like this is an actual letter from the director of the Met. That's what it looks like, okay? So now he's talking about the actual piece, okay? So he's familiar with the actual piece of Black Fives artifacts from our archives featuring Will Madden. This fascinating promotional placard would form a vital component of a section of the exhibition devoted to the role athleticism and sport have played in allowing Black men a space for creative sartorial expression, from jockeys and boxers in the 19th century to basketball players in the 20th century. Featuring a photograph of the New York Incorporators' dandiacal impresario, Will Anthony Madden, known as the Beau Brummel of New York City, alongside images of players in uniform, this object perfectly encapsulates the dialectic between garments designed to impress on the court and off. Both, in a sense, a form of uniform that signaled conformity and singularity. We would be honored to present this rare piece of sports history to a vast new audience and to contextualize it within a broader framework of fashion and social history. As is customary, all costs associated with the loan, including packing, shipping, and insurance, will be the responsibility of the Met, and he's enclosed an exhibition loan agreement, which we, of course, completed. So that's where the behind the scenes comes in, because don't you know, they sent a Sprinter truck and a team of people, these 2 individuals who are arts handling experts, to pack up the item, the artifact, and put it in the back of the Sprinter. There was nothing else in there. It was devoted just to this item when champions meet. This entire Sprinter is dedicated to one masterpiece of history. Thanks to Iris and Trevor. And they told me that they were taking it directly to New York City to the loading dock of the Met, okay? That's how important this item was or is, okay? That's really the background of it. And then they took off, and a few days later I got an invitation to the press preview, which I'm so glad that I went. and also was able to see how it all fits together, right? And so one of the things I noticed, not noticed, everybody will notice, is that there's a section on the sports section is called Champions. And it starts with Muhammad Ali and the style of his gracefulness and power and the way he presented himself, and then black jockeys and their style, and then it keeps going, and it ends on that wall with Will Anthony Madden, okay? And then it keeps going around the corner of the wall, and then the very next thing is some artifacts from Clyde Frazier, Walt Clyde Frazier. Clyde was known as definitely a dandy because he wore, you know, a mink coat, full-length mink coat, a fedora. He drove a Rolls Royce. He showed up uptown in Harlem, double parked, went into a restaurant, whatever. But he was not the first African-American sports dandy in New York City. That honor goes all the way back to Will Anthony Madden. If you put it into context, then you realize that when Mr. Madden died, he had no next of kin, no one to claim his body, no friends. He had been living in a nursing home, was completely forgotten. When I started doing my research on Will Anthony Madden, there was only one living person who had a direct connection and knew him personally, and that was my friend and mentor, Howie Evans, the longtime pioneering journalist, sports journalist from the Amsterdam News. And we're very sorry about his loss. He meant a lot to us. He was not only a friend, but also a founding member of our board of directors for the Black Fives Foundation. Even when he left the board, we still kept him on as board member emeritus for life because of the impact that he made and the role that he played and just the type of person that he was, and everybody that knew him, such a well-loved figure. And I devote an entire chapter to Howie because he was integral in helping me understand who Mr. Madden was in his later years. And so Howie and I met one day at a Starbucks up in Harlem, and he told me all these stories of Mr. Madden coming up to visit him at the Amsterdam News. And at first, Howie didn't really believe what he was saying, but then he pulled out articles and clippings and photographs and said, no, this is me, this really happened, like this is really happened, right? So he was spending his life trying to get vindication that he had been this contributor to basketball, right? And I was really just like so touched and moved by that I kept trying to dig into Mr. Madden even more to understand, like, why was he forgotten? How come he was so buried, like literally buried in an unmarked grave when he died? I only wish that Howie Evans would have been able to see what happened to Will Anthony Madden and his now proper recognition as the pioneering sports impresario that he was in the 1910s. So I mentioned that we got a formal gravestone for Mr. Madden so that he would no longer be buried in an unmarked grave, and he gets the proper respect and recognition that was due to him. But it was also symbolic because the entire Black Fives era, all of these basketball teams were forgotten and buried in an unmarked grave, right? And so hopefully my book, in a way, becomes the proper gravestone, if you will, for this whole history. And certainly the Metropolitan Museum of Art now is able to share and show this history, a glimpse into this history, to vast new audiences who come to the Met, and for this piece to be exhibited among some of the most historically important, sacred artifacts the world has ever known, is fitting, right? Because early black basketball is as sacred and important historically to the world as any of those other artifacts that they have in there. Hey, so you heard me mention Max Hollein, who is the director and CEO of the Met. And while he was giving his remarks, I noticed that he was German. And so, you know, as a lender to the exhibition, all the lenders and others, designers, etc., got VIP seats, you know, we were right center, right in front of the mic, in front, you know, right up front, like a couple of rows from the edge, almost like courtside, let's say, right? So Mr. Holine was sitting a couple of rows in front of me across the aisle. And so when the remarks were done, I decided, you know, every time I know that somebody's German, if I can detect that, I always use it as an opportunity to practice my own German. So that's what I did. So afterwards, I went up to, I waited for a second and I got into position and I said, Herr Holine, wie geht's Ihnen? Mein Name ist Claude Johnson. Ich bin einer der Artefaktverleiher für diese Ausstellung. Und es macht uns eine Ehre, dass wir eingeladen worden sind, unser Artefakt hier zu präsentieren. And that started a conversation. She said, oh, wie geht's? Wieso sprechen Sie Deutsch? And I said, well, meine Mutter ist Deutsche gewesen aus Frankfurt, mein Vater ist aus Chicago und deswegen haben wir Deutsch gelernt als Kinder. Und ja, deswegen sind wir hier, aber ich versuche mein Deutsch zu üben mit jeder Gelegenheit. And he said, oh, dein Deutsch ist perfekt, ja, natürlich, ja, und sogar aus Frankfurt. So, which made me think he's from Frankfurt, right? So we just had this dialogue and it was really, really funny and pleasant. And it just shows you that sometimes it's okay to learn like you know, another language if you can help it. But that's just because my mom was German. I literally said my father's from the south side of Chicago and my mother's from the south side of Frankfurt. And that's when he reacted. He thought that was funny. So now we're bros, man, you know. Just because of language, you know. That's what my dad taught me too, you know, like just keep talking, learn a new language, keep talking, whatever language, even if you speak your own language, just master that if you can, you know. So got a nice selfie with him and it was a wonderful event. I met a lot of great people and the exhibition itself is tremendous. You should really go see it. It's up through October, right? So definitely go there and catch it because it's really breathtaking, culturally, historically, sartorially, and in many other ways. It's a must-see. So thank you very much, Max Holine. Thank you to the Met, and thank you to everyone who's watching this and who's spreading the word on the Black Fives and their history. This is Claude Johnson from the Black Fives, reminding you to make history now. By the way, I forgot to mention that the t-shirt that I'm wearing is produced by one of our licensees, Homage, and they make this as well as a number of other t-shirts that feature Black Fives era teams, and you can go check them out at their collection link, which is below. I also wanted to just thank Homage. We love you as our licensee, and we're going to rep whenever we possibly can.